Good morning, Kathy Lawless here, Life Story Curator, bringing you this podcast series, How Did I Get Here? A series of interviews designed for people who are just starting out in their careers, in transition, or possibly feeling stuck, and giving them access to stories of other people who may have been in that same situation at some point in their career, and maybe giving them some new ideas and new ways to get unstuck. Today I'm with Shane Bauman, who I met through a networking group, and he is the president of two companies, one called Rise and another one called Prosper Bridge. Hi, Shane. Welcome.
Hey, how are you?
Thanks so much for joining me today. And by the way, when you hear Shane's story today, he just has two companies now. You should hear the number of companies and different things that he started over the years. It's fascinating. So I'm very excited to hear the whole journey because I've only seen pieces and parts. So
Well, I'm looking forward to it.
Well, as usual, I like to start with some icebreaker questions, which then gives the audience an insight into who you are and how you got started in life. So let's start with where you grew up, how many siblings, where you are in the birth order, and how that might have influenced you.
Okay, so I was born in Greeley, Colorado, but I grew up in Eaton, Colorado, which is just north of Greeley. Tiny little town.
Colorado native?
Yes,
Cool.
Colorado native. There were 69 people in my graduating class, so that gives you an indication of how small of a town I came from. Very much a farming community. And so as far as blood relatives go, I was the oldest brother. But my parents divorced and remarried, and so I was the second oldest.
In a blended family.
Right, because
Okay.
both of my parents remarried, and so I have 4 stepbrothers and 2 stepsisters in addition to my blood brother. So I'm near the top of the birth order, and I was for a while up till I was about 13. So
Yeah, so you kind of have that oldest child mentality that I got to be out there setting the stage and
yeah, setting the tone, protecting everybody, all that fun stuff. Yeah.
And growing up in a small town, did you play sports or a musical instrument maybe or both?
So I played football. I actually considered playing college football, but decided not to. And then I was interested in art and music as well. And I played in a couple different bands and was a lead singer. So I love music as well too. So.
Oh, so the athlete and the lead singer.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
cool.
Yeah.
Kind
of interesting.
Well, in the bands, did you just sing or did you play like the guitar? Or?
No, I mean, every once in a while they'd let me tinker around on the drum kit. But
the drums, okay.
yeah, and I learned to play a little bit of guitar, but not well enough that they should have me playing in front of crowds. I was better off just staying a front man and doing that. So.
So good voice, huh?
Sure.
Yeah. Or should we just say good courage? You had the courage to get
I mean,
up.
some people, I don't know. I don't know if I have a good voice or not, but I had fun doing it.
Okay, do you know any other languages?
I know a little bit of German and a little bit of Spanish.
Oh.
Just growing up where I grew up, I know, and I should say I know slang in Spanglish.
Oh, okay.
Spanglish.
So not really trained in either
No,
of those.
I mean, I took a couple of years of German, and I can say a couple of phrases, but that's about it.
About it. Okay.
Yeah.
Shifting gears just a little bit on the fun meter, scale of 1 to 5, where do you think you fit? 1 being the couch potato and 5, I guess, being a lead singer in a band.
Well, during the week, I'd say a 5. When it comes to the weekend, I'm probably closer to a 1. I just want to be a home buddy on the weekend and just recharge and hang out at home with my family. But during the week, yeah, I mean, I love to. It's almost like I have 2 different personas, so it just kind of depends.
So is your energy around work then? I mean, when I think during the week, I think work, but maybe...
Yeah, I really enjoy work. I enjoy being around people. I enjoy pulling the gold out of people, for lack of a better term. And I get a lot out of that. But then at the end of the week, I'm tired. I mean, it's just, I run all week long and then I'm tired and I just want to recharge and just hang out with my family. So, yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, you probably have a cool family, so...
I do have a cool family, and I have a very dynamic and ornery family, and it's probably because I'm the dad, and my wife's also very ornery. So we have fun, but we're ornery.
And your kids have your DNA, so of course
They
they're
do,
ornery,
yeah.
right?
So yeah, there's a lot of interesting conversations that occur in my household for sure.
Cool. Okay, same scale, 1 to 5, but talk to us about taking risks, where you are from a 1 to 5 on a risk-taking scale.
So I would say without my family, I'm absolutely a 5. I'm probably closer to a 4 because I have a family now. And, as we talk, you're going to discover that my faith is important to me. I think God knew that if I didn't have a family, I'd be somewhere on the poker tour and still playing in a band. And so that family kind of brings me a little closer to the conservative side, but I'm still very much a risk taker.
Ah, okay. Well, I think as an entrepreneur, many times people are putting themselves in that category of a 5. One person even called themselves a 10. So.
Really? Yeah, I might be. I mean, I think a lot of people, if they looked outwardly at, what we're doing, they would probably say I'm a 5.
Yeah.
But I still am a little more conservative because of my family. So there you go.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That gives us some insight as we go through the story now. So let's talk a little bit about where you are today as president of Rise and Prosper Bridge, and then we'll get into how did I get here?
Okay, sounds good.
I love to say that.
How did I get here?
I'm referencing, the Talking Heads song.
Oh, that's a great song.
At the beginning where
yes.
You may ask yourself.
Yeah, that's a great song, man. You should play that at the beginning of your podcast.
There's royalties. I got to figure out the royalty thing.
It's got to be far enough out now that you don't have to pay royalties.
Think?
It's like, that's got to be 30 plus years out, easy.
Okay, so tell us about your current businesses.
So, which one do you want me to start on, Rise or Prosper Bridge?
Either one that you...
Okay, so Prosper Bridge we're in the process of getting 501c3 established for Prosper Bridge. And the intent there is really to take people from intention to action. There's a vast majority of the population that is in a place of financial precarity. 66% of the U.S. population has less than $1,000 in a savings account. 72% of those people that have a job when they show up for work are worried about money while they're at work. And unfortunately, the employer is not well equipped to be able to address these financial concerns. They have a benefits package, so they'll have health insurance, 401k, et cetera.
Well, and the employer is also worried about just making ends meet, right?
Right,
and their
right.
profitability. They aren't worried about, what's going on in the minds of my employees many times.
Maybe
right?
not realizing that the fact that if they can get their employees' minds off of money, they're more productive employees and it impacts culture, which ultimately drives profitability. So that's very much a coaching and education company to come in to educate employees not only on what they have on the benefits side, but to bring additional resources to the table if they need them, to help them understand their particular situation, how they can improve cash flow, their savings, et cetera, to put them on a better path towards prosperity. That's why we call it Prosper Bridge.
Cool. And why a nonprofit model for something like that?
The reason we're going the nonprofit route is because it is very much non-biased. The way that we're approaching this is it is not sales. We are not selling any product. We're not selling benefits. We're not selling anything else. Not that there's anything wrong with selling benefits and getting compensated there, but there's this inherent bias that's built in when you're selling a benefit to position that product. And
absolutely. If I feel like you're educating me, I'm like, yeah, right. You're educating me on what products you sell, on what I should buy, right?
Exactly.
That's
and so it's very much about this idea that we want to remove the bias as much as possible. And in fact, we don't. I mean, it's part of what we talk to employers about is that we are not selling anything. Your people will take an anonymous survey and they will tell us what they need and what they want. And then we align the resources based on that. And we'll even align our monthly education based on that. So establishing it as a nonprofit, it's partially because of that. We want to keep that bias out of it, but it's also a funding thing. So we are seeking funding on a local and state level, and eventually we might look more on a national level because we know that the impact that we can make in the lives of Americans is going to be a powerful thing. And we have a really big vision to do that. We want to touch 750,000 people in 10 years and pull them from a place of precarity into prosperity. So that's a big vision. And so it's going to require resources to do that. And so seeking funding through the nonprofit and being able to keep that bias removed from it, we think is the best way to do it.
Wow. Okay. So that's one aspect of what you do. Then you have a day job, or that's half your day job, or
well, they're kind of connected. So Rise is an advisory company, and so Rise is we employ financial advisors. And so when somebody on the Prosper Bridge side identifies that they have a need that requires somebody who's more astute maybe in the financial services world, that understands different types of insurance and investment products, then that person can align with a Rise advisor, and the Rise advisor is there to help that person get the other resources they need because they carry the right licenses on the Rise side.
Okay. So one's going to be more of an education, but the other is more for-profit.
Yes, for-profit and delivering, being able to say, okay, we've now gathered all of this information here. Brass tacks are the tools that we need to accomplish the things that you told us were important to you. And so those oftentimes require a license. And so, anything that Rise can't do, we do have strategic partners, for instance, in estate planning, property and casualty insurance. If people are looking to buy a home, we have mortgage people and realtors that we work with. So we have the resources to really accomplish anything and everything that people want to do financially.
Yeah.
And so that Prosper Bridge, what we're calling a personal financial assistant, that person is really there to align the person with any resources that they need relative to their finances.
Wow. Well, and I know you're so well connected. You've been in this business for years.
Just under a decade.
I was going to say maybe decade.
Yeah, close. We're creeping up on a decade.
Okay, so obviously you're a kind of a serial entrepreneur. Have you always wanted to be where you are today? Is it, when you look back, junior high, high school, when you're kind of coming up going, okay, what am I going to be when I grow up? What was going through your head at that time?
Well, I think when you're younger, you don't know. I mean, I think there's very few people that are 18, 20, 22, 23 even that know what they want to do.
So far, I found 2 out of like 18.
Right. Yeah. And
in my interviews, really,
right.
They said, I know exactly what I want to do. They don't know how to get there, but they knew what they wanted. Everyone else is like, When
there's a song by 38 Special called Hold On Loosely, I think we should hold on loosely to that and be open to how we need to adjust based on our skill set. Because, I started out wanting to be an engineer because I wanted to design cars, and I went to CSU to do that. And I started going through the curriculum, meeting the people. There's some great people that are engineers, but I realized this isn't me. I need to go into something that's more creative, more engaging with people. So I actually changed my major. I went into graphic design, and then I was like, I don't think I can make enough money here, nor am I going to make the kind of impact I want to make. And I ultimately ended up getting my business degree. So I bounced around a little bit and ended up with a visual arts minor. But I think that we have to be open to, being guided, if you will, down a different path, because I just think that it's fluid. I don't think that, I think very few people drive a stake in the sand and go, okay, this is the direction I'm going.
Yeah. I'm going to be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever, because a lot of them, you hear the story, I started this way and then
Right. Well, and some people do. Some people know their whole life that they want to be doctors or lawyers or whatever, firefighter, whatever. But that wasn't me, and I think it's just the hard thing for me is that I really enjoy doing so many different things that pinholing myself into one career path was kind of hard for me because of my kind of entrepreneurial mind. So I think I'm at 46 finally coming to a place of peace, realizing that I love being an entrepreneur. I love being able to make an impact to the lives of people on my own terms.
Yeah, so stepping into that. So what was that first job out of college? Were you working through college probably? And
yeah, so when I was in college...
playing in a band still?
I was playing in a band. I was actually ran a pizza place in Greeley called Pudge Brothers. So that was, me and myself and another guy, we managed that place, which is, by the way, man, pizza is great. It's a great form of currency when you're in college. People will trade anything for pizza. It's crazy. Seriously.
So you were sitting on a gold mine.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, maybe I should start a pizza place when I get out of school.
Yeah.
But I realized that food service I wasn't long for that world. And then straight out of college, I went to a distance learning school in Fort Collins. At the time, it was called At Home Professions. I started in production management there, so I was running a team of people that were assembling student education materials. We were sending out mailers, and that's where I started. I ultimately ended up I was a marketing project manager for that school, so I did that for a little while. And then I met my wife and ended up wanting to come closer to Denver, and I went into the title insurance world, and I did that for about 6 years. So I was connected to real estate, really liked that, but I felt like it was kind of restrictive relative to some of the statute that has to be followed if you're going to be in the division, you're going to be bound to the division of insurance and sell title insurance. It was really restrictive, and it wasn't where I wanted to be. I did a stint in recruiting, had my own marketing company for a while, did a stint in roofing for a little while, and then ultimately ended up in financial services. And I kind of came in kicking and screaming because that had been presented to me before. I had looked at Edward Jones, Northwestern Mutual, a big broker when I lived in California for a little bit. And I didn't think I wanted to do this, but I've realized over time that it is It's what I'm passionate about. It's a great way to make an impact in the lives of people. So, I started out in this business with a smaller fraternal financial organization, which is very much like a mutual. So it's owned by the policyholders. So it's very much an insurance company, very product focused, great company. However, I wanted to be able to bring a better suite of products and services to the table for the client. And so I ended up at another place called Wealth Strategies Group for a little bit, and then I was at Mass Mutual for a little bit. And I realized that I had a vision and a calling and something that I wanted to pursue, and I ultimately needed to have the creative freedom to do it. And so that's why I launched out, and I'm doing what I'm doing. So.
Wow. Well, that's quite the
Did I summarize that quickly enough?
Yeah, you summarized that beautifully.
Okay, cool.
So talk a little bit about this calling and what you're trying to bring to the world. And when I hear the word calling, I guess I always think of that something bigger than someone say, I'm drawn to this. I have a passion for this.
Well, it started out, probably about 2 years ago. I was building out a marketing plan, and I was I forget what the title was. Some kind of managing partner, managing director. So I was a managing director at that point in time, and really the focus, if you're a managing director within a financial firm, is to recruit people and get a bunch of people into this business. And as I started building out that marketing plan, I pray about a lot of these decisions that I make, and I felt God nudging me and saying, that's not a big enough vision. Let's go back and look at your bucket list and the things you want to accomplish. You're not destined to just stay in this position. You need to think bigger. And so as I started to do that, quite honestly, as I started to get kind of jaded with this industry, I realized that I was jaded because I felt like there was a lack of leadership, culture, and vision in this industry. And that's really where things started. And I felt like, again, God was nudging me to say, there's an opportunity there. There's an opportunity to differentiate in an industry that needs it desperately.
Yeah.
And people need it desperately because there's a fail ratio in our industry of about 90% in the first 3 years. So about 90% of people will fail out as an advisor in the first 3 years. So I knew it was broken. And so I just started building out this plan and started talking to some people who were interested in this idea of disrupting a very old industry. And, so I pray about these things a lot. At one point I was sitting this is funny, I was sitting in the Freddy's drive-thru picking up dinner for my family. And I felt like God spoke to me and he said, I wanted to eradicate poverty. And I'm like, man, that's a big one.
Wow, I just got goosebumpy when you said that. Wow.
Yeah, and I'm like, that's big. And there's no way that I can do that on my own. And so it's crazy how as I've been more open to this idea of eradicating poverty, how resources are just aligning because it's so radically different than what the industry is focusing on. And it's just crazy. There's different nonprofits that can support parts of that we've been aligned with. There's credit unions that we've aligned with that can help with that. There's strategic partners who are bought into this vision. There's people that are even on the higher end of wealth management that realize that prosperity is not just an income problem, or poverty is not just an income problem. It's how we manage our resources. Because I'm a big stats guy, and Jervis is one of my partners has really kind of programmed me this way, but 25% of people that make $150,000 a year are living paycheck to paycheck. So it's not an income problem.
Yeah, you think, it's just I need to earn more.
Right.
No, it's really how I manage what I earn and how I live my life.
Exactly. And so we're inspired to come in and realize that it's not about selling a product. It's about putting people on a different path, helping them deal with the issues and the hang-ups that they have around money, because it's impacting every area of their life. It's impacting their health, how they're showing up work, how they're showing up in their relationships, and the stress that they have in their lives. And so that's kind of where the calling has come from.
Yeah, well, I can feel your energy around it when you talk about it. And so you're not talking products. You're not talking financial advising or investment, blah, blah, blah. You're really talking how do we help people thrive.
Right.
And how do we eradicate poverty.
Exactly. Taking people from that idea of surviving to thriving is a big part of the calling. And there are tools that we have to use to do that. But we're really, and some people hate it when I say this, but we're product agnostic. We want to say, okay, here are the things you want to accomplish. Here are the best tools to do that job. And even if you've heard negative press around some of these tools, let us help you understand how and why they're designed the way they are, and why there's negative press out around these tools. Because some people have misused them for the purpose of aligning their products, but the tool itself is not inherently good or bad. It's knowing how to deploy the tool when it's the right time in the right situation.
In the right situation,
Yep.
yeah. So as a disruptor then, whenever you're disrupting something or you have a new and different kind of idea and model around something, there's got to be setbacks, pitfalls, or even times people are like, you're crazy. I mean, how do you deal with there's a fun part about being a disruptor, but I think there's also that, am I doing the right thing? Is there doubt? So kind of let's get in the mind of what this means to be a disruptive entrepreneur.
Okay, so what do you want me to talk about specifically?
Kind of what's going on with the little voice, and how do you handle, the challenges that come up?
So the little voice in your head can be your biggest pitfall, or my biggest pitfall. I shouldn't speak for other people, but it's been my experience that can often be our biggest deterrent and our biggest enemy, because the voice in our head will oftentimes tell us, you can't do this, it's too hard.
And then other people are
everybody's going to laugh at you,
right? Yeah.
You know what I mean? And people have. I mean, people have scoffed at this idea of creating something out of nothing, and people have said, this. Other people have tried and failed, and quite honestly, that drives me. I mean, it's like, okay, well, then I must be onto something. If people are fighting against it that much. Warren Buffett talks about this. Warren Buffett is obviously a very wealthy man. He talks about how when other people are getting into the market, he's getting out. And when other people are getting in, or other people are getting out, he's getting in. And so, that mindset is a disruptive mindset. It's against the herd mentality, realizing that that leaders, you have to do the tough thing. And it's not going to be easy. You're going to meet resistance because it's so against the grain. And so I don't know that I've answered your question specifically. Is there something else there?
Well, I want to kind of understand, that voice, how do you deal with the voice then?
So a lot of it is taking that thought and then speaking something in contrary to that voice. So like if the voice is saying you can't do it, it's saying, I'm going to do this. I will be victorious in this. I know that sounds crazy, but just saying those words out of your mouth can change the way that you're thinking. And again, I go back to prayer a lot. I mean, I go to prayer and seek wisdom and strength in my relationship with God, and that is helpful. And also go to the Word or the Bible, and I find a lot of wisdom there. And then it's also surrounding myself with people who are bought into this vision, not the naysayers, because there's a lot of naysayers out there. The people, and it's interesting if you pay attention to who the naysayers are, it's the people that are not on a similar path. I mean, they're the people that have failed, or they've never even tried.
Yeah.
And so why would I listen to somebody who's never even tried? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'd rather talk to somebody who gutted it out and said, man, it is freaking hard, but here's how I came out on the other side.
Yeah.
And that, I think all of those things help you fight those voices, because it's not always a voice in your head. It can be the voice of somebody.
Of other people,
right,
yeah.
Right.
And then that plants a seed that then the little voice starts to chew on. And
Right. And one of the things we talked about is, we have to make sure that we're seeking wise counsel, and, relative to the specific topic that we're thinking about. So like, for instance, with me, I have amazing parents. I love them dearly, but my dad and my mom both grew up in this era and in this mindset that you get a 9-to-5 job, you get something steady, and you do that. And they have a hard time understanding why I'm doing what I'm doing. And that's a challenge, because you want your mom and dad in your corner.
Yeah.
And so I've had to have some tough conversations with my mom and dad, and specifically my dad, who I love dearly. And I'm just like, Dad, I'm wired differently than you. And he acknowledges that. And it's actually strengthened our relationship for me to be able to just have a conversation and say, I just need you to say that you believe in me. Even if it's hard for you to understand, that's all I need to hear from you. And he said that. He's like, I do believe in you. Because it's hard for me to grasp, because I don't think that way. Risk like that scares me. And so
then he worries about you and all. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
He just wants the best for me, and I get that. But
well, that's a great point, because when you are a young person or just starting out, a lot of times, who do you who do you naturally go to for advice, and many times it is your parents
or your peers, right? And
yeah.
So I think it's important that, depending on what you're thinking about, whatever it is that you're seeking wisdom on, finding wise counsel means you find somebody who's walked that road, right? You find somebody who's been on that road and has gone through it several times. I mean, it's kind of like, if you're in a marriage, are you going to seek marriage counseling from somebody who's been divorced 3 times? They're going to show you how to successfully navigate a divorce. But, how you want to talk to somebody who's been married maybe 20, 30 years, because they've got a lot of experience. They can tell you about how marriage is a struggle and a fight, and it can be, but it is so rewarding, right? If you're willing to fight through that, the beauty on the other side is worth it. And it's I mean, that's just one example, but the same thing in business. Like if I'm going to go out and I want to start a business, am I going to talk to somebody who's worked a 9 to 5, or am I going to go talk to somebody who's done it more than once? And seek their advice and seek that wise counsel, because that's the person I should be talking to, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Well, thank you for sharing that, because I do think people need to seek that out. And sometimes you get comfortable in your little group of friends, parents, family, or what have you, and then how do you branch out of that and really seek that and recognize that person you're talking to has a different level of experience than what maybe anyone else has. So they might say something completely different than what your other people are saying. So.
It's likely that they will.
Yeah.
And those are the people that you need to talk to seek encouragement when the chips are down, because if you're talking to somebody who's not done it, that's going to be, I mean, they're not going to give you the kind of advice I think that's going to be helpful generally.
Yeah. How do you define success for yourself now, and then has it changed over time? I mean, when you were, kind of younger coming out of school, did you have, this is what I think success is going to be for my life going forward? And then now, you said you're 46. What does it look like?
Boy, that's a good question. When I was a kid, I shouldn't say when I was a kid. I'm speaking of like when I was in my 20s, which isn't necessarily a kid, but it feels like it now. When I was younger, I thought in my head I would be the CEO of an organization. By the time I hit 30, I wanted to make $1 million a year, and I didn't. I didn't do either one of those things. My path took me down. I went down a different path, and some of that is because I had some self-sabotaging behavior that kept me from hitting those goals. But success to me now is about impacting people. The money comes as a result of impacting people. And so that goal of hitting 750,000 people in 10 years, I want to hit 1 million, to be clear. I want to touch 1 million people. I want to have that kind of impact. I want to have 1,000 advisors with a national footprint. And to me, that would be successful because we know that we've touched that many people. And so that's, oftentimes it's metrics, but it is knowing that we're impacting people. And again, I'll use this terminology, it's pulling the gold out of people. It's encouraging them and pulling that nugget out of them to show them that there's something greater for them.
And when you say gold, you're not referring it to from a
money
perspective.
Yeah.
It's really
so,
the
beauty.
I
can see where that, right. I can see where that could be misconstrued. Be like, financial guy's trying to pull the gold out of people. No, I'm talking about, that thing that's inside of them, that potential, that, the thing that they want to actualize. That's what I'm talking about. When they're, whether it's a client and they have these dreams of sending their kids to school, having a second home in Florida, and just living life beyond money. Mm-hmm. That's one thing. If it's an advisor coming in or somebody who wants to learn this business and be successful, it's pulling that out of them, that whatever's going on inside of them, helping them uncover their why, to say, okay, why are you doing this? What is the story behind it? If it's just to make money, that's not the right reason if you're an advisor, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. Because that's empty. Like, you'll get to that goal and then you'll just kind of keep nudging it up. If you don't have a visceral why, then it's empty.
Yeah.
And so that's what it means to pull the gold out of somebody, is to help them get to this place of that emotional connection with where they want to go. Does that make sense?
It does. So it sounds like you're right where you want to be.
Yeah, definitely.
Right now, and you feel like you're running down this path, and it's that energy you need to be that during the week of 5.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So yeah, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be right now. I can't say that in every moment of every day, because it can be a roller coaster. There are days where I'm just like, why the hell am I doing this? Should I be doing this? And I know that I should. I mean, the ultimate vision is that I know that I should. But, anytime you're moving forward in a direction, sometimes you're going to meet resistance. You're going to meet resistance. People are going to resist you. And I think that just spiritually, I think that there's another side of it. There's the good side that wants you to go the direction you should go, which I call God. And I believe there's an enemy to our soul that wants to take us down a bad path. And we aren't able to actualize and step into our calling. And so, oftentimes what I call the enemy is trying to keep you from moving into your calling, and will plant those seeds of doubt in your head to keep you from moving in a direction where you can make an impact.
Yeah. So you have to stay strong with your faith and your beliefs and your passion. Yeah. So when you were a young person, did anyone kind of give you some words of wisdom at the time that were really powerful for you? Or do you feel like you wouldn't even have been able to hear that that you really just needed to experience things for yourself. I mean, that's the hard part of when you are starting out, right? Is what data points, what advice, kind of what's going on in your life is going to be kind of giving you direction and guidance.
So are you asking if somebody said something specifically to me that helped me go down this path? Is that what you're saying? When I was younger?
Or when you were, if something really helped you when you were younger or through the whole path. And then I guess, or would you, then maybe a second follow-up question is, would you have been able to listen to that, or what would you have listened to?
No, I don't. I can't really think. I'm really racking my brain to think about that, and I can't think of any pivotal moment when I was a kid. I've always just kind of been wired differently, and I used to really resist that because I felt awkward. I felt like when I'd go into situations, just sometimes I didn't want to have the conversations that people were having, not necessarily because I thought my conversation points were better. I just oftentimes felt like I didn't fit in, and I think that for people that are listening, if you have that going on, it might be because you're called to be a leader, and leaders stand out. They do things differently, and it can be lonely and hard being a leader.
Yeah.
And so I can't think of any particular. I've come across lots of entrepreneurs. Like I have a friend, his name's Tim, and he owns a company called Castle Rock Imports in Castle Rock, and he's an entrepreneur. And as I launched into this, he was extremely encouraging about doing it. He said, it's hard. I remember times when I was like putting, like the credit card was maxed out because we were just trying to get this thing off of the ground multiple times just to meet payroll and do all that stuff. And so I don't know that he said anything specifically, but he was really encouraging as I did this. So that's all I can really think of.
So it was great to have someone like that in your corner. And again, like you're saying, someone who's been in that place that has the experience of it, not just, giving you advice randomly. They've actually been through it. So.
Right. And I think, as I've talked to people about this vision, people either really get excited about it or they're turned off by it. And the people that get really excited about it, who have a leadership background, it's created this momentum, and we rally around one another, specifically myself, Ivan, and we've recently brought in somebody named Maggie. The three of us rally around each other, and we help lift each other up and continue to propel this thing. And so having a tribe, if you will, of people that you can lean on, that are bought into this vision and want to go the same direction, it's good to find people like that. And people actually, as I think about it, external to this, like there's some guys at Red Rocks Credit Union, there's some people at Cross Purpose, there's people that I've just met and had coffee with. They are so excited and energized by this that they're pumping resources and making introductions into it. And so that's really what's propelled it, is to share that vision unashamedly, realizing some people will really like it and be completely bought into it, and some people are gonna be like, you're crazy. And trying to align with the people that are like, this is awesome, let's figure it out. That is what has helped propel me from a success standpoint.
Taking that, you're very much in a niche right now, but yet you want it to be not nichey.
Right.
A million people is not nichey anymore, right?
Well, it actually is. The niche.
Well, I guess when you think of the whole population.
The niche is that we're going in and we're using the employer relationship. We're leveraging that employer relationship with the employees, realizing that is a niche. Everything is so highly siloed in the benefits industry, and it's not the industry's fault. But there's a unique niche and an opportunity to come through that door and talk to a lot of people and make an impact larger than just going out and talk to people one-on-one. Do you know what I mean? So we're able to multiply our efforts, come in to talk to a lot of people at once, hopefully communicate a message that resonates with a lot of those people, then be able to align with those people based on what they told us in this anonymous survey. So there still is a niche, even though we're talking to a lot of people. The problem is not, a niche necessarily. I think it's widespread. This idea of poverty exists in America, which is crazy. Everybody looks outside of America and they think, well, it's only in Kenya or other parts of the world, but it's here. It's here amongst people who are affluent and making money. It's a mindset. So I think we do have a unique niche, but I think it's going to resonate with a lot of people. It has so far.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I admire your goal and your dedication to it and your faith. This is really a cool conversation, and I could probably keep talking to you all morning. So, but as we kind of start to wrap things up, What would you, or maybe you've already given this advice to your kids, what advice would you give to people just starting out, or maybe someone who's stuck? How do they, because, at some point you as a leader was in an environment and you said, this is no longer where I want to be. It didn't align with your values. And as a leader, you decided to end that and start something else. Mm-hmm. So how do you get to those points? There is they talk in leadership about persistence, but then also is there a thing in leadership about when to know when to quit or when to change or when to be done with something?
Yeah, I think the first thing I would say is never stop taking risks, because if you don't take risks, you never grow, whether it's in relationship or business or anything. I think you have to take calculated risks, like just taking the risk for the sake of taking risk is not wise, but never stop taking risk. And then,
so in a way, it sounds like you're defining risk though as learning and growing.
Yeah.
Doing new things.
Making mistakes, failing forward, if you will. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember how many times Edison failed at the light bulb. It was 10,000 times. Yeah. And ultimately, he created the model for how we get light into buildings. I mean, so being able to have the grit to persevere and keep trying and keep risking and keep making mistakes and not stopping is it's important, no matter who you are. But to your point, I think you do have to have good people around you, and you have to be coachable. Like, there always has to still be this spirit of humility that you can admit that you're wrong and realize that you might need to make a change or an adjustment. And what that does, in my mind, is it creates a culture of collaboration where you're around people who feel comfortable collaborating with you. You can challenge one another, and everybody gets better. All ships rise with that tide when we can collaborate. We can respectfully challenge one another. We can encourage one another. But being coachable is really important, no matter, I think, what stage you are in life.
Wow, yeah. So it's not just plowing forward with an idea you think is amazing. It is really collaborating with others.
Right.
Finding maybe there's different ways to approach it, different things, and then...
Well, at its core, I think this idea, I know what this idea looks like, but there's all this refinement that can happen along the way, like different things that you either allow in or out of the process, different tools and mechanisms, different people, different relationships. I mean, allowing that to be refined, knowing that there is this kind of core vision is important. Being able to adapt and adjust and be open to feedback to let that be refined is really important.
Mm-hmm. Well, great. Thank you. Well, thank you for sharing your story today. And is there anything else that I haven't asked you that maybe you would like to share?
I don't think so. I would just encourage anybody who's a young entrepreneur, or even an older entrepreneur, just step out. It's tough. It's hard. Make sure you have a good support system around you. But I would say it's never too late either. I mean, I fret over the fact that I'm 46, which isn't that old, but to start a business at 46, I literally had somebody approach me recently, and I was talking to them about it. They're like, 46 and you have the energy to start a new business, 2 new businesses? I'm like, yeah, I do.
Yeah. You've probably got more energy than ever, right?
I'm like, yeah, and that drives me even more that you would question that I don't have energy.
You're like, how old are you, right?
He was the same age as me, actually.
Interesting.
Exactly the same age as me. I mean, within a couple of weeks, actually, of me.
Yeah.
So it was interesting that he said that. I think taking risks, it's worth it, but taking calculated risks.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's interesting. In all the interviews I've done so far, and I think I'm up to about 22 or so, the younger people that I've interviewed all have like a day job, but they also have a side gig.
Mm-hmm.
And they're at that point of when can the side gig, I think they're, looking in their minds anyway about, when can the side gig become my full-time gig, or when, and that's kind of what you're talking to right now, is when do you take that risk? When do you boldly step into that, and how does that look? And I think they're, kind of, I'm used to this day job and the full-time, the steady paycheck, that kind of a thing. But then I also have this passion project on the side, which is fulfilling all of them, all their needs right now. So
yeah, and I think, are you asking me to address that?
Well, yeah, if you want, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm going to go back to my faith, and the word in James 1:5 says, if any man lacks wisdom, he can ask and it will be given freely to him. So I pray about those decisions, but there comes a launching off point where you're going to have to take a step out. It's kind of like if you've ever seen Indiana Jones And was it The Last Crusade, the one with Sean Connery? Do you know
Oh,
which one
yeah,
I'm talking
yeah.
about? So there's
the
a
bridge.
scene. Yeah, there's a scene in that exactly where he can't see where he's taking that next step, but he steps out in faith. And leaning on God to do that is where I go. And the other thing is you may look up. There's a Steve Harvey video. It's like, I want to say he's 30 seconds, 45 seconds, and he talks about how you got to jump. Have you seen it?
No.
You look it up. It's really cool. He's like in a parking lot talking about it, and he's like, there's going to come a point and you got to jump. You're going to come to the edge and you got to jump. And it's like, oh, yes, that's exactly what it is. And it's scary but invigorating at the same time. So there has to come this launching off point where you just lay all the cards on the table, you go all in, and you pursue it.
Yeah.
But you're right. I think, the beauty of this culture that we live in now is that you can do side gigs like that all day long. I mean, people are driving for Lyft and making a little bit of money and doing that. But there comes a launching off point where you'll know. You're like, okay, it's going to be tough, but I have to jump all in or it's not going to work.
Yeah.
So
you'll know. That's the thing. You'll know. You'll know when it's the right time.
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, Shane, thank you so much for taking your time this morning and for sharing your story. And as usual, I learned so much about the people that I think I already know pretty well. And so this is really cool. This is what I love about what I'm doing right now. So,
well, thank you for the conversation. I really enjoyed it.
And listeners, if you enjoyed this interview and this podcast, please like us, subscribe to the podcast, How Did I Get Here? And, share it with your friends and family so that others can be exposed to these stories. And if they're feeling stuck, maybe they get unstuck. So thank you so much, Shane.
Yeah, thank you.